Chapter 1631. Daisy, who played the mermaid, became the target of a lot of haters for unknown reasons. Most of the haters who attacked her were Lara's loyal fans. Daisy skimmed through the comments of those haters on the internet. Thinking of what Lara had said the other day, she knew that this was most probably Lara's doing. Freya and Daisy rushed to the lecture hall. "Have you offended Lara?" Daisy shrugged. "Maybe. Lara is Ken's fiancée. She's an actress who signed a contract with Dory Wood. It said that her father invested quite an exorbitant amount in her entertainment career. That's why she has a lot of resources in the industry." Daisy was astonished for a split second. It turns out that Lara is her brother's fiancée. A black sedan pulled over right next to the two of them all of a sudden, and the window lowered slowly. To their surprise, the person sitting in the car was Ken. Ken's gaze landed on Daisy. "Miss Vanderbilt, do you have some time? Can you spare me a few minutes?" Freya's eyes dimmed slightly, and she inadvertently swiped across the contact list on the phone screen with her thumb and dialed Noce's number. Daisy frowned. "As soon as I learned that Lara is his fiancée, he came to me instantly. Could this be because of Lara? I have to go to class. I'm afraid that I don't have time." Daisy pulled Freya and was about to leave, but Ken's gaze shifted over to Freya. "Are you planning to only look on from the side and not lend me a helping hand?" Freya stopped moving forward, stared at Ken expressionlessly, and did not utter a single word. Daisy turned her head. "Mr. Pruitt, even if Freya is your sister, you're not in the position to ask her for her help, don't you think?" Ken gave off a brief smirk. "If I'm not in the position to ask her for help, what makes you think that she's in the position to reject me? Didn't you want to talk to me? I'll talk to you then." Daisy did not want to see Freya being torn in order to make up her mind, so she compromised. Ken squinted. "This isn't an appropriate spot to talk. Why don't we find another spot where we can take a seat and talk?" After suggesting that, he added, "And of course, if you don't trust me, you can ask my sister to come along." Daisy took a glance at Freya, who nodded. The two got into the car one after another. The car pulled over at a cafe near the college. Ken ordered 3 mugs of coffee and immediately placed a gift in front of Daisy. Daisy did not receive the gift. "What is the meaning of this?" "I apologize to you for my fiancé, Miss Vanderbilt. If she's offended you, I hope you can be magnanimous about it. He was the closest person that Lara had, and Lara would tell him if she were to run into any incident that piqued her. And now that he was the son-in-law of a nobleman, it was only natural for him to have to coax his fiancée in order to secure his title." Lara did not know who Daisy was, but Ken knew it very clearly. Lara must have gone to her fiancé and asked him for his help because she was upset about the incident. Since she knew everything about her fiancé, she naturally knew that her fiancé's sister studied in the same college as Daisy. If Lara were to offend the Goldman because of her petty grudge against Daisy, the Hathaways and the Knowles would definitely side with the Goldman. Ken knew this, so he took the initiative to meet Daisy, hoping to reconcile with her. Daisy leaned back into the chair. "Since you want to apologize to me, why didn't your fiancé come and apologize in person?" Ken's gaze dimmed slightly. "Given her pride, she'll never bow her head in front of anyone, but you read different, Miss Vanderbilt. I think you're empathetic enough not to make a fuss out of this." Freya's hand, which was holding the mug's ear, could not help but clench tightly. Ken is very competent at moral coercion. He literally said the same thing to me when he asked me to announce to the public that the child is mine. We're brother and sister, 2 individuals whose blood is thicker than water, so why can't you help your brother for once? That was what he said to me. Daisy looked directly at Ken's face and fell silent for a moment. "If your fiancé won't let go of her pride and arrogance, then why should I let go of mine? My family has never let me suffer from any grievances throughout my life, and you're here asking me to endure all these injustices without creating a stir about it. Mr. Pruitt, isn't that a little too much to ask?" Chapter 1632. Ken was startled, and his brows instantly creased. Miss Vanderbilt, why must you be so overbearing? You've snatched her endorsement from her and embarrassed her in front of the public. So as long as you can take a step back from this situation, your kindness and generosity will be remembered by her. I don't need her to remember how kind I am. Daisy stood up. Plus, I didn't snatch her endorsement from her either. The perfume company is the one that came to me and asked me to endorse their product. The people from her agency are the ones who didn't communicate with her beforehand, so they're the ones that you should meet with in order to resolve this issue. Is this how you resolve an issue? By trying to make a college student's life hard for her? Ken tried his best to suppress his discontent. Lara had asked him to get rid of the girl, but he could not possibly offend the Goldman because of his fiancée, so his solution was to ask the little princess of the Goldman to compromise so that she would not become Lara's hindrance. Miss Vanderbilt, I'm doing this for your own good. I know Lara's temperament too well to know that she'll never let this slide. However, as long as you're willing to compromise and persuade the company into withdrawing your endorsement, I can guarantee that. She's my girlfriend, and I don't need you to protect her for her. A deep and bold voice came from behind all of a sudden, breaking the tense atmosphere. Daisy was stunned as she watched Noce and Edison approach them slowly. Ken frowned. What brings you here, young Master Knowles? Noce stopped by the table, and his tone sounded extremely indifferent. Judging from Miss Reese's personality, you're here to talk Daisy out of the endorsement, aren't you? Ken did not say anything. Noce hinted, you want to show off your ability in front of your fiancé, but you want the Goldman not to make a huge fuss out of this incident at the same time. However, if Daisy didn't have the Goldman as her backing, you wouldn't be here to talk, but straight up eradicate her. Ken understood what Noce meant, so his expression turned glum. Noce pulled Daisy out of her seat. If you don't want to lose everything you have now, you should go home and tell your fiancée to restrain herself so that she doesn't offend someone that she shouldn't trifle with someday in the future. He then left with Daisy. Freya took a glance at Ken, who was sitting in his chair motionless, and then caught up to the couple. Walking out of the cafe, Daisy looked up at Noce. How did you know I was here? Noce opened the car door for her and placed his hand on top of her head as she entered the car. Can I not know about you? Daisy sat in the car, pursed her lips, and said nothing. Freya stuck her face against the window. You guys should go back first. There's something else that I need to attend to. After saying that, she grabbed herself a cab as Edison drove the car away. In the car, the atmosphere was silent. It had been some time since she last saw Noce, but she never asked what he was up to recently. Noce leaned closer to her, held the back of her hand that was resting on her thigh, and asked in a deep voice, Did you miss me? His breath was very close to her neck, making it feel very itchy, so she dodged him subconsciously and whispered, No. Noce fiddled with the ends of her hair and twirled them with his finger. But I did. Daisy's ears flushed, and she asked, casually, Who did you miss? He grabbed a clump of her hair and kissed it. You. His gaze was fixed on her, leaving her with no space to step back. All sorts of emotions were displayed right under his nose. She looked overwhelmed, shy, innocent, and extremely pretty. She lowered her head and muttered, I. Get lost, I won't be able to stand this at all if this goes on. Noce gave off a smirk, leaned back in the seat, and looked out the window. It seemed like he was looking at the street view, but it could also be the reflection in the window. Their hands stayed together as he did not let her hand go throughout the journey. It was so quiet yet so beautiful. The car pulled over at the entrance of the Victoria College, but Daisy turned around only to realize that Noce did not plan to let her go. We've reached our destination. Noce propped his hand against the side of his forehead and leaned against the window with his eyes closed as if he was taking a nap. She had no idea if he had truly fallen asleep as he did not react at all. Chapter 1633. Daisy did not know what to do, so she could only stare at Edison, asking him for help. Edison looked at her through the rearview mirror helplessly. Miss Vanderbilt, please stay in the car with the young master for now. I need to buy something from a nearby shop. Edison had always been a sensible person. He might have come up with an excuse to leave, but it was to give the couple some space. He had been following Noce around for so many years, and he might not be able to figure him out during normal times, but he could see him through at a glance whenever Daisy was present. Without waiting for Daisy to say anything, he turned off the engine, opened the door, and got out of the car. Daisy bulged her cheeks. How long do I have to wait? She did not realize that the corners of the lips of the person sitting right next to her twitched and rose slightly, and his head was already leaning against her shoulder. Daisy was startled and turned to look at him. His nose was well-defined, his eyelashes looked thick, and an arc was formed when they were dangling over his closed eyes. Even his slightly thin lips looked so pleasant to the eyes, and no imperfection could be found on his face. The first time she saw Noce when they were kids, she already realized that breathtaking was the only word that could match his appearance. Perhaps it was the appearance of a mixed-race man that made his facial features look even more delicate than those of a girl. Daisy also had to admit that she only remembered him back then because he was attractive enough to capture her attention, but she did not expect Noce to still look so handsome after all these years and would exude a more deadly charm than before. It felt like he was a vortex that was constantly dragging her in, making it impossible for her to stay sober when he was around. Just when she was a little distracted, something moist pecked her lips all of a sudden. Daisy was stunned, and her breathing stopped for a short moment. Noce only pecked her for a split second and did not stay for long. Daisy immediately returned to her senses, and her cheeks looked like tomatoes. You were only pretending to be asleep. Hilarity flashed across his eyes. How do you expect me to sleep when you keep staring at me? But you can't just sneak up on me and ambush me. Daisy backed away from him as she could not calm herself down now. Noce pressed his forehead against hers. Don't you like it when I kiss you? She choked on her own words. That's not it. He smiled. Then I'll take it as you like it. If you do this again, I'll... Ignore me? He laughed and pinched her cheek. You're the only one that I like. I can't help it. Noce, aren't you suffering from amnesia? Daisy turned around, stared at him, and blinked. Then why didn't you fall for Lisa? He looked at her and guessed that she was trying to trick him into telling her the truth. Noce approached her. Why should I fall for her? She squinted and smiled. Didn't she tell you that she's the person who went through everything with you? You won't even fall for her for that reason? Noce sat up straight and did not speak. Daisy started to feel stuffy deep down again. She was afraid of the words coming out of his mouth, but she wanted to know the truth so badly that she was willing to suffer to get to the bottom of her doubts. She was about to push the door open and get out of the car when Noce abruptly turned her face toward him and kissed her again. He then held her in his arms and moved his lips toward her ear. But you're the only one that I like, so what can I do? Daisy's face was buried in his shoulders, her legs felt weakened and wobbly, and she felt a little out of breath right after getting kissed by him. Stop talking about it. Then do you still doubt me? She responded with a faint hum. No. Daisy finally broke free from his arms and ran away. She was afraid that she would not be able to leave the car if she stayed back any longer. On the other side of the college, Freya had just returned to the college from the mansion, and she ran into Colton in the corridor. He crossed his arms and was leaning against a pillar. His gaze looked profound and keen as if he could see through anything. Freya thought he was there for Daisy and knew that he was hostile to her, so she did not even bother to greet him. When she walked past him, he stopped her abruptly. Chapter 1634. Freya stopped and turned to the side. What's the matter, Coleman? Colton was still expressionless as he stopped in front of her. Freya was 5 feet 3 inches, yet she still seemed a little petite when she was standing next to Colton. You stayed in dorm B before this. Daisy is staying in dorm A, and Freya stayed in dorm B before dropping out of school. However, ever since she returned to the college, her accommodation has been changed to dorm A, and she happens to have become Daisy's roommate. Freya was startled and could not help but squint. I did change dorms. Is there any problem? Why? Coleman, why should I tell you the reason I changed dorms? It was not that Freya had never heard of Colton. Apart from being Daisy's brother, he was also one of the candidates competing for the student of the semester. He majored in finance and took computer science as an elective. Apart from Noce, he was practically unrivaled in college. Colton had always been a person who was very clear with what he wanted. He had always been freer and easier than Noce because he disdained to pretend in front of others. He was a very incisive teenager and had always had a very firm and ruthless attitude toward the people and things that he hated. His behavior and actions were the exact opposite of Noce. If Noce was said to be a tiger that had velvet paws, then Colton would be one that had never bothered to hide its claws. Colton inserted his hands into his pockets and glanced at her. Is Noce the one who arranged all that for you? Freya did not admit or deny the statement. Since you've already arrived at such a speculation, why bother to ask me? He did not utter a single word. Freya turned around. There's no need for you to be so wary of me. I haven't come to a point where I have to beg someone to be my friend. To me, friendship is something optional. It has always been a want, but nowhere near a necessity to me. Colton watched as she left, and something was definitely flashing across his mind. A few days later, Daisy's endorsement advertisement sailed against all the negative comments and successfully achieved a comeback. It still won over countless fans even though it was under attack by the criticism of all the haters. Some people named her the human elf, and some called her the reincarnation of Aphrodite, a girl who exuded purity and sexiness. Seeing that Daisy did not go to the perfume company and withdraw herself from the endorsement deal under the heat that the haters put on her but gained fans instead, Lara was so angry that she smashed the tablet to the floor. She's just a girl from Zlokova. Who gave her the guts to mess with me? She refused to believe that a young girl who had not even graduated from college could really be this lucky. She could not stay calm any longer. Thinking of something, she picked up her phone and dialed her father's number. Father, something happened, and you must help me. At the Victoria College. Daisy stayed back alone in the vocal room to practice the piano. The afternoon sun shone in through the French windows and on the ground. The scenery outside the window looked vivid and vibrant, and all these were coupled with the girl who was sitting in front of the piano, forming a beautiful picture. A figure leaned against the door quietly, watching this scene for quite a long time. Daisy did not notice that the person behind her was approaching, and when she smacked her disobedient hand because she played a wrong note, a sudden burst of laughter came from behind. She turned her head around in a hurry, and Noce restrained his laughter. How did you get in? I got in just like this. He leaned lightly against the side of the piano, bowed forward slightly, placed his fingertips on one of the keys, and corrected her wrong note. It's rare to see you be so serious. She turned her face away and snorted. You make it sound as if I've never taken anything seriously. His gaze landed on her face. That's exactly the reason why you look so enchanting at this moment. Her cheeks warmed up once again, and she whispered, You're giving me such horse crap again. He chuckled. It's true. Daisy got up and approached him. Then what exactly do you like about me? Chapter 1635. Noce squinted slightly and asked, Then what about you? She pretended to have gone through thoughtful considerations. I like you because of your good looks. He was slightly startled and laughed out loud all of a sudden. Then I should consider myself lucky because of my locks. Daisy pursed her lips, and when she was about to say something, Noce grabbed her arm, brought her into her arms, and caressed her cheeks and jaw with his palm. And I like you for no reason. She was trapped in his arms, and her eyelids trembled slightly. Every time he got close, it stirred waves in her heart. If this was the feeling of falling in love, then she might have fallen in love long ago. Noce and Daisy walked out of the vocal room holding hands. Even if they ran into other students downstairs, Noce would not let go of her hand. The relationship between the two was that of a couple, just as rumored. Juliana was standing not far away, and when she saw the two holding hands, she was first surprised, but then remained silent. Thinking of what Daisy had said to her last time, she was actually dubious about it. In addition, she had not been able to get in touch with Lisa for a while now, so she could not ask her what had happened. She could not help but feel confused deep down. Is young Master Knowles really dating the daughter of the Goldman? Wasn't this just a matter of time? If young Master Knowles didn't plan to court her, why would he stay back in college for a year and refuse to graduate earlier? In fact, throughout all these years at the Victoria College, it was not that no girls were interested in courting Noce, but all those girls could see that Noce was only interested in the daughter of the Goldman. His fondness for her was so blatant that anyone who could not see it was truly blind. Juliana pursed her lips as she listened to the conversation that was taking place between her coursemates. Just then, she received a text message from a stranger on her phone. The light in the bedroom was extremely dim, and the only strand of light that shone in from the corner of the room reflected onto the pale and dejected face of the girl. She deleted the several text messages she had sent, and accompanied by the snores that came from the other side of the bed, she became more and more anxious. The phone rang suddenly. She hurriedly turned off the volume, and when movements could be felt coming from the person sleeping next to her, she froze, and a torrent of sheer coldness shot down her spine. The man rolled over, but did not wake up. She heaved a sigh of relief, walked to the bathroom with the man's cell phone, answered the phone, and let off a faint sob. "Anna, help me." The next day, it had been raining all morning. At the end of the lecture, Daisy walked out of the academic building with her backpack. The rain continued raging unabated, and most of the students were trapped under the eaves just like her. She received a text message on her phone all of a sudden. It was from Noce. "Did you bring an umbrella?" "I didn't." He did not reply to her for a moment. Daisy put her cell phone away and watched those course mates standing beside her, getting picked up one after another. Thus, she lowered her head and kicked the ground with the tip of her shoe. However, it did not take long before a silhouette appeared in the rain and walked toward her with a black umbrella. The surroundings looked very dim and dull, but the figure was dazzling. Daisy was astonished. "Noce?" The other students who were sheltering from the rain under the eaves looked at them enviously. Noce stopped in front of her and held her shoulders, and the umbrella was slightly tilted toward her. Hopefully, it didn't take too long. She was astounded. Were you nearby?" He tilted his head, glanced at her, squinted, and smiled. "You bet." Daisy left with him. The rain had not stopped, and the umbrella almost sheltered her whole body while the rain drenched his shirt. Daisy grabbed the umbrella and moved toward him. "The rain got you." He moved the umbrella back to its original position. "It doesn't matter, as long as you don't get wet." "But you'll catch a cold." "I'll be fine." Chapter 1636. Daisy insisted on moving the umbrella over. "No, I won't feel comfortable about it." Noce smiled, seeing how stubborn she was. He pulled her over and kissed her hair. "I guess you have to stick to me then." Daisy didn't know what to say. She felt that she had fallen into a trap. When they got to the dormitory, Daisy stood under the roof, turned to face him, and pressed her lips together. "Go back and change." Half his shoulder was wet. Noce nodded but didn't move. Daisy tilted her head. "Why are you not leaving?" Noce looked at her and was going to say something when Daisy suddenly leaned in, stood on her toes, and kissed the corner of his lips. He froze. After Daisy did what she wanted, she ran up the stairs. Noce ran his finger over the spot she had kissed and chuckled. That coward ran away right after kissing him. Daisy ran into her room and pressed her back against the door while her heart pounded. She kissed him. Daisy Vanderbilt. Freya's voice brought her back to reality, and Daisy forced a smile. "Yes?" Freya had just gotten out of the shower and was drying her hair with a towel, so she didn't notice her guilty expression. Juliana came to see you today. Daisy was startled. What for? Who knows? It seemed to be urgent. By the way, I got her number. Call her. Freya handed the note that Juliana left behind. Daisy took over the note. She left her number? Is it really urgent? She went back to her room and called the number. It was picked up almost immediately. Anna, you wanted to speak to me? Daisy, were you behind Lisa being sold at the black market? Daisy was surprised by the interrogation. What do you mean? Stop pretending. Lisa contacted me secretly and said that you sold her to the black market. How could you be so cruel? You're the only one who can save her now, so you have to do it. Daisy fell silent. Every time Juliana spoke to her, it was always about Lisa. She believed everything that Lisa said. However, that was just like her in the past. Lisa always had a way of making her believe her. Daisy, say something. Juliana was anxious. She had no idea how to save Lisa, but Lisa had asked her to speak to Daisy and said that only Daisy could save her. What do you want me to say? Daisy's coldness stunned Juliana. What? Anna, I told you that I'm not involved with anything related to Lisa. If you don't believe me and choose to believe her, why are you asking me for help? Daisy, do you know what you're saying? Lisa hoped that you could save her. How could you be so cruel? Why didn't she call the police if she's really in trouble? Why did she ask me to save her instead? I'm not dumb enough to let you trick me again. Daisy hung up. When she heard that anything had happened to Lisa in the past, she would do all she could to help, but that was no longer the case. Fool her once, shame on them, fool her twice, shame on her. She wasn't falling for that again. Juliana didn't expect Daisy to be so heartless. Lisa had begged her while crying and said that only Daisy could save her, but Daisy wasn't worth her trust. She could only find her own way around it. That night, Lisa pretended to be sick so she could be brought to a clinic. Chapter 1637. The guard knew that Lisa had been good recently and hadn't tried to run away. He was worried that if she really was sick and passed it on to the clients, they would get in trouble, so he agreed. When they got to a clinic nearby, Lisa told the doctor about her symptoms. The doctor took a look at her and seemed to have heard of the symptoms. You need to get a blood test. Lisa went inside with the doctor. The guard stood outside and waited. It would be hard for her to escape the black market, so he thought that she wouldn't be trying anything. The doctor took her blood, and Lisa asked him, how long would I need to wait for the result? Joe minutes. The doctor took the vials of her blood and walked out. Lisa looked at the phone on the desk and glanced outside. She then quickly picked up the phone to give Juliana a call. When she found out where Juliana was, Lisa hung up and walked out. The guard was on his phone. She carefully said, I didn't bring any money. Is there a bank nearby? The guard was annoyed. What are you playing at? I'm not. She started crying. I just wanted to withdraw some money for the fees. If I'm sick, it will be a loss for you too, right? The guard was glad she knew her place, so he smirked. You better not play games with me, or I'll teach you a lesson. He brought her to a bank nearby. Lisa grabbed the corner of her shirt because Juliana had said she was near the bank. Lisa. She heard Juliana's voice. Lisa immediately pushed the person beside her away and rushed over. The guard's face dropped. You little bitch. He ran after them. Juliana grabbed her, and they ran without looking back. The guard called for help. Lisa turned and saw the guard was close behind them. She didn't want to go back, get tortured, or lose her freedom. They were getting close to the end of the road. Once they could get out of the black market, she would be able to get help from passers-by. But the people had almost caught up with them. Lisa's face turned pale because she refused to return there. She looked toward Juliana and grabbed her. I'm sorry, Anna. It was Daisy's fault for not showing up. Before Juliana could react, Lisa pushed her. Juliana fell to the ground and watched while Lisa left her behind. The people grabbed hold of Juliana while Lisa escaped. The guard followed, but she had already gotten into a cab. After showering, Noce walked out of the bathroom, drying his hair, when the phone rang. He picked up, and the caller told him that Lisa had escaped. He sat on the couch and asked, how did she get away? The caller said that a girl named Juliana was left behind because Lisa wanted to escape. Noce squinted and said after a pause, find out where Lisa is and follow her. See if she will contact anyone. She was involved in Tristan's accident 4 years ago, so now that she had run out of options, she probably would contact her accomplices. 2 days later, at the library, Daisy and Freya sat next to the window. One of them was getting ready for AP class, while the other was scribbling in the notebook. Daisy looked up at Freya, who had chosen the drama, theater, and film course. If it weren't because she had found the sock puppet that Freya was hiding, she wouldn't have believed that Freya was the author of the novel More Than Friends. Chapter 1638. The novel became a bestseller online for years and later on was published overseas as a physical books. Daisy had read it 2 years ago but couldn't remember where. She had been under the impression that the author was a man. Freya felt uncomfortable because she kept staring at her. Why are you staring at me? Daisy supported her head with her hands. I'm curious. Why did you join the drama, theater, and film course? Freya answered, because I like to perform. Writing is just so I can earn some money. Daisy was curious. Do you need to make your own money? She was Noce's cousin. Even if her mother was not a royal, they were related to them, so it didn't make sense if she was born poor. Freya smiled. Do you think everyone is like you? You're the little princess that everyone loves at home, so you won't have issues with money, but I'm different. She looked sad after saying that. Her mother was born out of the royal family, so it meant that she was the outcome of an affair. Even though she had royal blood, it wasn't something that they could make public. Her father was from a middle-class family and didn't come from money. All the love in the family was given to her brother, just because he was the eldest and a son. Why else would her family let her brother enjoy the riches, but ask her to drop out of school to take care of his child? They didn't even care about her reputation. Her brother would get anything that he wanted, but she had to work for it. She had never asked for any money from her family since junior high. She worked all sorts of jobs before, working in a cafe, washing dishes, singing at a bar, and even publishing her book, all to get money for school. Daisy pressed her lips together. I'm sorry for being so blunt. She didn't know Freya well enough, so she couldn't understand why she had to work so hard even when she was related to royalty. It's fine. I get that a lot. I've worked my way up all these years, and now that I'm older, I'm more relaxed, because I can live the way that I want to. She was very glad that she was no longer controlled by her family. Daisy looked at her. She was so calm during the entire conversation as if she was already done with it. They both left the library and suddenly heard a few girls in the middle of a discussion. Really? Something happened to Juliana? I heard about it yesterday. The people from the black market. That's so scary. Did she step on someone's toes? Daisy paused as she looked toward them. The girls didn't notice the people behind them. I heard that it was because she offended the princess of the Goldman. Daisy Vanderbilt? I saw a post on the school website that said that Juliana was tortured by the people in the black market, and Daisy was behind it. I wouldn't have guessed that the Goldman princess was such a cruel person. I always thought that she was a nice person. I think Daisy and Freya are in this together. Neither of them is good people. Daisy froze, looking offended. Then Freya spoke. Can't you go further away when you're gossiping? The expression of the girls changed. After Juliana was released from the black market, she locked herself in her room. Her father was so worried because his daughter wasn't home for a few days. Now that he realized that something was wrong, he sent someone to find out why. Chapter 1639. He wasn't expecting to find out that Juliana had been locked up in the black market. He was well aware of what kind of place the black market was. If news of his daughter being there was leaked, her future would be ruined. He was going to make a police report when his assistant brought over a flash drive. "Sir, someone asked to hand this to you." Joshua took it and waved for his assistant to leave. He hesitated before plugging it into his computer. It was surveillance footage. It clearly showed how the people from the black market had caught his daughter, and his face turned dark. At that moment, in the car parked not too far away from Juliana's home, Noce looked out the window. Edison got into the car and looked into the mirror. "Sir, I've handed the flash drive." Noce looked back in and rolled up the window. "Did she leak the news about Juliana in the black market?" She was referring to Lisa. Edison nodded. "After she escaped, I found out that she went to a hotel and withdrew $800. I checked her bank account. Someone has been sending money to her in the past few years." Noce rested his head on his hand. I guess the person who was behind her had always been in contact with her. Edison couldn't believe that such a young lady would have so much planned. She had become part of the Knowles just by saving Tristan, and if Noce hadn't been careful with her, she would have gotten her way. After escaping from the black market, she spread the news about Juliana and tried to ruin her reputation. Juliana's father would definitely look into it, and Lisa might even get a chance to turn things around because of that. Fortunately, Noce turned this to his advantage, disrupted her plan, and handed the footage to Joshua, showing him who was behind his daughter falling into the hands of those people. Suddenly, Noce got a message from Freya. He read it, and his face dropped immediately. The anonymous post made Daisy the talk of the town. Everyone learned about what Juliana had gone through in the black market and thought Daisy was behind it. Everyone in Daisy's class looked at her with hostility, as if she had committed a crime. Since the students weren't willing to perform with Daisy, the professor had to get her to stop attending classes until it blew over. Daisy walked out of the hall and bumped into Noce at the door. She paused. "You heard?" He stopped in front of her and pulled her into his arms. His voice came from above her head. "I'm sorry." His eyes were cold because he should have realized Lisa was coming for Daisy. She ruined Juliana's reputation so she couldn't go to school and pinned it on Daisy. As long as Juliana didn't show up, Daisy wouldn't be able to explain herself. It looked like Lisa had gotten away with things easily the previous time. Daisy was curious. "Why are you apologizing?" Noce snapped back and rubbed his chin on her head. "As your boyfriend, letting you get into this sort of trouble would be my fault." Daisy pressed her lips together, and after a long while, she looked at him. "But Juliana. She's fine." Daisy was surprised. "Fine? But wasn't she?" Seeing Daisy's expression, Noce ran his fingers over her cheeks. Nothing happened to her in the black market. She was just locked up for a few days, but someone took the chance to spread a rumor. Chapter 1640. Daisy looked at him. "How did you know?" Noce didn't answer. If he told Daisy he was behind it, he was afraid she might be afraid of him and might stay away. He only showed Daisy the positive side and kept the cruel side for the rest of the world. He never wanted to let Daisy know his dark side or the tactics he used. But the way Daisy looked at him, her clear eyes were so pure he didn't dare look into them. He was afraid that he would see his actual self through them. He raised his hand and covered her eyes. "Don't look at me that way." Daisy pushed him away. "Why not?" Noce leaned in and joked. "If you continue staring, I'll kiss you." That worked. Daisy stopped staring while she blushed. After sending Daisy back to the dormitory and when Noce was leaving, someone stared at him from afar. Noce walked over. "How long have you been standing here, Mr. Goldman?" Colton crossed his arms and coldly said, "How did you let Lisa that disaster out? Why didn't you tie her up properly?" He knew when something happened to his sister. He had found the anonymous post, and it was posted by one of Lisa's accounts. Noce loosened his watch. Lisa no longer lives with us. Colton frowned but didn't speak. I'll settle the matter with Lisa, but there's something I need your help with. Noce walked closer and whispered something to him. Coleman paused, then smirked. I'm not helping you. Noce smiled. It's all for Daisy. The next day, the school posted a new post. There was a new shocking video. In the video, it wasn't Juliana but another girl. Someone recognized the girl from the video. Isn't that the adopted girl of the Knowles? Oh, that's disgusting. How could she do that? That's not Juliana. Daisy and Freya walked into the classroom while everyone was watching the video. They were shocked by the content of the video. Freya showed Daisy the video on her phone. Do you want to watch? Daisy took over the phone suspiciously. What am I watching? What she saw repulsed her. She pushed the phone away. Why did you show me that? Freya suddenly laughed. You know the girl in the video. Daisy hesitantly took another look after hearing that and was stunned. That's Lisa. Freya sat in her seat. Nothing happened to Juliana in the black market. It was Lisa, and it has been cleared. Seeing how Daisy was still stunned, she put her chin on her hand. Why? Do you feel sorry for Lisa? Daisy didn't speak. Freya continued. There's nothing to feel sorry about. She asked Juliana to save her but betrayed her when she was in trouble and caused Juliana to be caught. She even spread a rumor about Juliana to ruin her reputation and pinned it on you. This might have been you, but Juliana was too dumb. Lisa had set the trap for Daisy. She thought that if she lied to Juliana and let her confront Daisy, the latter would feel guilty.